how Kyle Shanahan got his groove back. We're going to talk about the 49ers' best run game performance of the season, their first win in over a month, and the first time they had a positive EPA in the run game all season. It was a win against the Chicago Bears. We're going to take a look at 6 plays, plays that were successful, plays that were not successful. This is also going to be our opportunity, our seemingly annual opportunity, to shit all over the All-22 that is the Bears film, because it's terrible. It is legitimately the worst All-22 in the NFL, and that scoreboard is one of the reasons why. But we start off with something that the 49ers have done more and more this year. It's going to be the return of the power run, and wasn't all that successful.
Yeah, you don't need a great view to see that play wasn't their best play on the day, and so thankfully, yeah, we've got a decent end zone view to work with here, which is where we're going to be spending most of our time anyway. But yeah, I think early on, I mean, we talked about this a little bit on the podcast about how it really seemed like things were moving pretty well in the run game for most of it, with the exception of the second quarter. Well. It kind of turned out as on a rewatch that it was really one specific concept that they were having a lot of success with, and a lot of the other stuff that they were trying to do was less successful. So this is one of the other things, right? So they kind of start out early. They've been, like you said, going to more gap scheme stuff. We're getting more of this power type look. But the thing that the Bears were doing a lot in this game is playing this sort of bear front. They kind of gave different variations of it, but you can see the 3 defensive linemen that are all tight there, basically either head up on the tackle or further inside. And so they're kind of packing everything there in the middle with those guys. You got the linebackers that are kind of sitting in the bubbles behind them. And so that makes it difficult to do a lot of the stuff on the inside, right? Like this power stuff. You can see it's just a lot of guys getting stood up, not a lot of movement being created. And so there's just not really anywhere for Mitchell to be able to go on this play. And that was kind of the story when they went to this type of stuff throughout the game.
Yeah, the concepts that they usually like to go to were not wildly successful. And we even saw a play that the Niners are starting to fold more and more in. And it's something they actually took from the Ravens playbook. That's the second play that we're going to look at here after this atrocious scoreboard. This is going to be a man blocking scheme, and you're going to see another little feature, which is that quick motion from the tight end that happens. You're seeing that. You're going to see that on a couple of other concepts too, but the play also doesn't work because the Niners run game really wasn't super. It didn't do a lot early on in the game until they started to attack some of the edges. But this is a straight up Ravens play.
Yeah, I mean, and this motion is something that we pretty much only saw consistently from the Ravens throughout the league, right? Where they're basically getting this motion and they're kind of treating this guy, right, as a lead blocker. If you just imagine this player lined up, on the other side of Jimmy from Hasty there and just kind of going and executing this kick out block, that would be a little bit more standard setup to this type of run, right? If they were going to go with it. But they get this guy in motion, and it just kind of creates some different looks and different problems for the defense. But again, a lot of this type of stuff is about creating movement and kind of getting guys off the ball a little bit, right, to create the running lanes here. I think Hasty probably should have bounced this outside a little bit here, because even though you see Laken Tomlinson right there get stood up, and that's kind of what ends up throwing him off. And I think he's thinking this is a 3rd and 2 situation, so short yardage. I just want to try to get uphill and basically get that yardage that I need and not really worry about hitting the bigger play. But I think when you look at how the rest of the blocks are executed here, I think he's got some space out there. And so that one, maybe you put a little bit on him, but even still, Tomlinson, right, getting stood up, not creating that movement, muddying the read for Hasty here. And ultimately not successful.
We say it several times, but the run game requires success from a lot of different people in order for something to pop. And in this case, it was just 1 or 2 things that prevented the team from converting on a 3rd and 2. But now we get to the 3rd play in the series, and this is still early, but this is the 49ers going to the play that will really win them the game over the course of the 4 quarters. This is the first time they go to it, though, and it is a beautiful, beautiful outside zone toss that just ends up ripping for a huge gain. And it's immediately off to the races. You see Mitchell squirt through a hole there, and you begin to see some of the things that are going to be successful for the 49ers over the course of the game.
Yeah, so we're going to see, as we let it run from the end zone view here, that same sort of motion, right, from Juice. So you're, I think on the previous play when we talked about it, was one of the tight ends doing it, but in most situations, it's been Juice that's kind of running that motion. And yeah, if you imagine, again, just if Juice was lined up in his typical fullback position, either straight behind Jimmy in the I formation, or usually they like to offset him a little bit where he's kind of, lined up over the guard. It's ultimately the same thing, but they're giving you a different look to get there. And I think it's been really effective for them. And so the thing that's nice here is Juice is able to kind of help out Charlie Woerner on this block. So, right, he helps him with that kick out, really tosses that edge defender wide who wants to set, because you see that kind of bear front look from the Bears defense here, and they're really packing things in the middle. And so what they want to do defensively is 57 needs to be the guy that sets the edge, right, and forces things back into all of those bodies that are in the middle. But when you bring kind of Juice across here and really kick him out with some force, right, it widens that gap. As long as everybody else behind him is doing their job, which they are on this one, you can see the lane that develops there. And then Juice still has time to kind of come off, get a piece of that cornerback, and that frees up Debo to go to the safety, right? And so when you suddenly can get wide receivers down the field on your last line of defense there, that's how you create some of these bigger, more explosive plays in the run game.
Yeah, and ultimately, the defense got outflanked here. They got outflanked a little bit because of what they did to themselves, which is a line really tight inside. But also, the Niners were able to create an advantageous angle by putting Juice in motion the way that they did, and just creating a huge wide gap that runs wide when the entire team is on one flat track, kind of running that way to the outside left side. Now, they couldn't do much in the second quarter. The run game basically stalls. Chicago had a huge drive, and when the Niners get the ball at the end, they were in a 2-minute situation, so not a whole lot of success, really, or really attempts in the run game in the second quarter. But then you get to the third quarter, and they try to go back to the same outside zone toss, and this time it gets blown up, and it gets blown up because of one change in alignment that the Niners had that allowed the Bears to knife in and get a stop.
This was really the only one of the only times that Chicago was able to defend this play well and kind of stop it for a minimal gain. It was basically this time, and then it happened late on really their final drive when they're just trying to milk clock and not terribly concerned about the outcome. But the difference that we see here, so again, once we wait for the pre-snap look, you get a similar look from the Bears, right? So again, you've got those 3D linemen that are packed in tight between the tackles there. You've got the two backers behind them. We're going to toss this out to the tight end side, and we've got Juice coming over to help him. The difference is we don't have Debo aligned on that side. So in that previous play, Debo was there, and just really his presence, even though Debo's not looking to actually block him on that play, it holds the corner there, right? The corner he doesn't know if it's going to be run or pass at this point. He has to at least wait and get kind of initial read. And so Debo just kind of throws a hand at him and then moves up to go get the safety. Well, here, there's no one there to hold him. And so he sees that motion coming his way, which the 49ers have been doing a bunch. So surely he is familiar with this from watching film, but coming into the game, he knows that it's likely to be a run play his direction. And so because he doesn't really have anything holding him there, he's able to just kind of knife in the backfield. And he can get to the ball carrier before Juice has a chance to be able to come off that double and go and pick him up. And so this was kind of an alignment, mistake. Like I don't want to say that like somebody screwed up and was in the wrong spot, but just kind of formationally, this was the one time that they didn't really have all of the pieces in place to be able to have the numbers that they needed on the play side of the block to pick all of these guys up, and they ended up paying for it.
So early on, the 49ers tried power, wasn't super successful. They tried some man blocking, wasn't successful. They tried an outside zone toss, was successful. They tried some pin and pull stuff. They tried some inside zone, all with moderate success, probably at best. And then you get to the fourth quarter, and this is when Shanahan just starts to spam the Bears with this outside zone with his outside zone play, and it works. And this is the textbook example of keep running it until they stop it. And I mean, you had over 90 yards in the fourth quarter, and a lot of them were on this outside zone toss that just continues to work.
I mean, most of them really. So you have another 27-yard gain here, and we'll let it run initially. But the one thing that's different here, and I think this gives a good contrast to a lot of the motion stuff they've been doing, is this is kind of what it looks like normally, right? So this is where Juice would align without the motion. So before they've been aligning him basically next to McGlinchey there, and motioning him across and getting him over there, with that motion pre-snap. Here, they just kind of align him over there, but from a blocking standpoint, everything is the same, right? So you still get him helping out on the block from Warner there to help kind of kick out that edge player. He works up to the defensive back that's down in the box after that, and you're really looking to try to hit in that alley that's between the tight end block and then your block from Trent Williams there that's getting up to the second level. And so this is kind of the more traditional way that they've run it. And, again, either way, it was going to be successful in this one as long as they had the numbers play side to be able to account for all the defenders that the Bears were showing there.
Yeah, I mean, you just get such good angles from the left side of that line. I mean, you look at the way the inside linebackers aligned. Trent Williams was able to get up to that second level pretty easily and wall that off. Laken Tomlinson does a good job on the block as well. And it's just flat out pretty. Like, it looks like they are, like, the defense puts themselves in positions to get blocked, and there's almost like a natural bubble there. And Mitchell just waits for it, and then it opens up, and he bursts right through. I don't know that he might get an arm there, but basically it's effectively untouched. Like, effectively untouched right there. And he makes a couple of good cuts. Like, so he ends up getting a couple of yards afterwards downfield, but it is overall really pretty. And this is when the Bears, they were compacted tight early and they were in bear fronts, but now they've got someone wide 9. They've got someone waiting out on the edge, and it still doesn't matter. Right? They get inside of them because what they're able to do, the inside linebackers and the defensive tackle, and then they do it again. They do it again later on in the drive, and it works again. It's like, okay, let's go.
Yeah, I mean, so that was the basically the first run play that they had in their second to last drive in the fourth quarter, and that really sets up, gets them down in Chicago territory, sets up touchdown. And then here, this is the first play, right, of what ends up being really their final drive, with the exception of the kneel downs that you had there at the end. But yeah, you can see they go right back to it, and this is the one that really sets them up to go purely into 4-minute mode, milking the clock, and they go back to the motion variation here, right? So we get, again, Juice a line next to McGlinchey. He comes over, but you can see how everything sets up, right? Like, ultimately, the positions we get to are no different than if Juice had a line in the backfield, right? The only little wrinkle on this play is now we've got Debo that's going to come from out of frame and come up and help on that linebacker because of how they're aligned on this one, rather than go up and look to pick off the safety. But again, we still have enough bodies there to pick up everything. Juice has enough time to help on that outside block, get up to the DB, and get enough of him. And then once you get Mitchell into space, right, it's all him at that point. Like, this is where he's going to make his money, by making guys miss at the second and third level.
One singularly unheralded thing in this play that, you're not going to get this on NFL Matchup. You're not going to get this anywhere else. It's going to be my man, Brandon Ayuk. Look at the effort. Look at the speed. He knows he's being tracked via GPS. He is now responsible for that safety. He's got to go make a block. And here's the key. Here's how I know my man is thinking. He is a smart man. He knows it's an average GPS time. So what does he do? He sprints at the end. Got to get that average up. Got to get the average up. Got to get Shanahan off your back. Got to get the man off your back. Work the system, Ayuk. I see you.
I love how he's celebrating here, because, like, once he gets to this point, right, like, Mitchell's still going, obviously, but he can't, like, Ayuk can't get involved in any of the blocks, right, without it being a penalty. Like, he's staring at everybody's back. And so he's just like, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and start celebrating early. Yeah, gets that GPS time up, right? Get a little sprint at the end. Feeling good. He's seen some targets this point in the game. Hey.
It's basically the call center version of the NFL, right? You gotta keep the call times down. he's got to keep his GPS speed up. Otherwise, he's going to get those. He's no longer going to get those targets. That's what I'm saying. 71% of the 49ers outside zone plays generated positive EPA. And I mean, they basically rode that toss play and that outside zone play specifically to a victory against the Bears, because it wasn't like they were doing anything that was super inventive, but it was just, hey, you know what? Trent Williams is back. We have an advantage on the left-hand side. And let's throw literally Juice as a human missile into the edge, and let's see what happens. And you know what? It worked out.
Yeah, I think with the looks that they were getting from that Chicago defense, like it made a lot of sense. And I'm honestly surprised. I mean, Shanahan has never been shy about going to the same sort of looks over and over again until you see a defense finally adjust and do something different to take that away, right? I'm a little surprised he didn't go to it even more than what they did, because it was just so successful. I mean, like I said, pretty much other than the one play that we showed where they were kind of down on the numbers play side, and then a late play there on that final drive when they're just milking clock and not really too concerned about the outcome. That was the only time Chicago managed to slow that play down. So it was very effective for them overall. And yeah, I think was a big reason they were able to be so successful offensively, right? Because we know they're going to run the ball in those early downs, and this type of stuff helps keep them on schedule, helps prevent getting them into kind of third and long situations that we know they're going to struggle to convert. And then, ultimately it was what they went to put the game away late.
That is what drove the 49ers to their first win in over a month. Thanks again for tuning in. And as always, go Niners.